Sohail, you can record now. Good. So, guys, today we are going to start a structural design, chapter 6. Okay. So, in this, we are going to cover the architectural design decisions, architectural views. It is architecture seen in different views, architectural patterns, architecture application architectures. So that what is actually the architecture design? The architectural design is concerned with understanding how a software system should be organized and designing the overall structure of that system. So definitely it's a roadmap. It's a it's a simply the map of your building like we have in civil engineering. So it is the best of that and definitely the management of that base. So here, if we look at this, software system should be organized and designing the overall structure of that system. So we are going to learn this in this chapter. The architectural design is the critical link between design and requirements engineering, as it identifies the main structured components in system and the relationship between them. And definitely this means this we are going to extract from the requirements provided by the customer. The output of the architectural design process is an architectural model that describes how the system is organized as a set of communicating components. So definitely that complete model, that complete design should be interconnected, should be clearly mentioning their communication components as well as the pattern, which type of component will give the input and which type of component will give the output, and how the data will be, which that particular component will send this type of data, and that particular another component is going to send what type of data. Anyways, the agility in the architecture, definitely agile in this, as we know, we always compare all these things. I mean, those models were compared with the agile methods. So architecture, uh, this is the output of the requirements provided by the customer, and definitely customer in agile, customer should be at the site. Agile says that can be implemented into pairs, like the coders will be in pairs, what we call it the pair programming. So all this, if you look now, it is generally accepted that an early stage of agile process is to design an overall system architecture. So in agile believes in the output. Okay, agile definitely followed the documentation, but as soon as we come up with the output, and that is the thing. So definitely, if we look at the design, means here we are going to learn the architectural design. So requirements, from requirements we came up with this particular design. Okay, so refactoring the system architecture expensive if it affects so many components in the system. So remember, refactoring of the code, refactoring of the design, and definitely refactoring of code is comparatively easier than the design. हम देखें architectural design, and this is the software engineering. If we compare this with any other engineering, like we take an example of this building. So what happens? Like we got the map, what we call it the sketch provided by the architect. So this is the room of or the hall of around 20 by 20. So this is the design. And what is in refactoring? So in refactoring, we improve the design, we change the design, we sometimes whatever that means. So there should be the flexibility in that to be changed. And definitely हम कोड को refactor करते हैं कि ताकि it should be the self-explanatory. But here we are saying the code is refactoring of the code is comparatively easier and cheaper than the refactoring the design. एंड जाहिर सी बात है कि अब ये दीवार हमने खड़ी कर दी है, अब बन जाए इसको चेंज करना तो डेफिनेटली इट्स प्रॉब्लमेटिक. It is going to take your efforts, either it's in the shape of finance or the time. Anyways, so all these two things in this are definitely, and in design we are coming towards the output. So this is the simply guys architecture of the packing robot control system. If we look at this, so we have all these I mean components in this. So what robot is going to do, this is simply an example. Okay, so it's very easy. You means these are the simple arrows which showing, for example, arm controller function is there, gripper controller is there, packing selection system, vision system, object identification system, conveyor controller. I mean, this is guys, I mean, we know that in robot we have the different sensors. So if we look at the sensors, so we have, there should be the question, what is sensor again? So sensor is a device which has 4 components. So for example, the processor, memory, battery or power supply, and the communication device, what we call it, the network device. It can be the Wi-Fi, it can be the Bluetooth, I mean wireless technologies, all infrared can be. So this is a sensor, and sensor backs the robot, the architecture of a packing robot control system. So here you will find the different functions showing, showing the say those sensors. For example, arm controller will have the definitely the sensor. Grip controller is going to contain the sensor as well. Anyways, this is an example, and this is very easy, and you can go through this architectural abstraction. Architectural abstraction, we have architecture in small is concerned with the architecture of individual programs. At this level, we are concerned with the way that an individual program is decomposed into the components. Architecture in the large is concerned with the architecture of a complex enterprise systems that include other systems, programs, program components. These enterprise systems are distributed over the different computers, which may be owned and managed by different companies. Anyways, as I gave the example of a building, so we are saying a complete building, an academic block 1 is the complete software, is a complete system. So it has the entrance, it has the connectivity of the rooms or halls or whole building. So same goes with this type of computer systems. So for example, we are saying there is a system, like we are saying it's a web-based system. Website of the Sukkur University. So that website is hosted at any web server, and there are the different clients. Okay, so we are saying computer 1, computer 2, computer 3, computer 4, computer 5 through a network is going to get the connectivity with the Sukkur IBA University website or the web server. So this is again a design. This is again an architecture. What we call it the client server architecture. And again, we have another pattern of that. We have the layered as well. So layers, for example, if you are saying this is, for example, like we take an example of this computer. So definitely, if we go through from bottom up, so in bottom we will look for the hardware. हमारे पास CPU है, इसमें हमारे पास motherboard है, processor, RAM, all these other devices, peripheral devices. So this is the lowest layer. Now there should be the operating system to run to operate those devices. So the lowest layer is, जैसे किताब नहीं पढ़े होते बुक शेल्फ में, नीचे वाला बुक, फिर उसके ऊपर एक बुक, फिर उसके उस बुक सेकंड बुक के ऊपर एक और बुक, फिर उसके ऊपर एक और बुक. So what it is, the hardware is there, then we have the operating system, what we call it the OS. And after the OS, what we assume is the application softwares. And after the application softwares, what we call it, maybe you have the communication or we so these are the three layers in this. Anyways, हम आगे चल के इसको देखते हैं. Advantages of explicit architecture: stakeholder communication, system analysis, large scale reuse, and definitely when we are going to design the any system, so definitely we look for the resources as well, and we look for the reusing the resources or reusing code or design. So definitely and architectural representations is what? Simple informal block diagrams showing entities and relationships are the most frequently used method for documenting the system architecture. So हमारे पास इसमें आर्किटेक्चर में हम ऐसे ही बनाते हैं ना, बॉक्सेस की तरह, ब्लॉक डायग्राम्स, लाइक ओके. सो वी हैव द एंटिटीज. जो पिछले वाली स्लाइड में हमने जो रोबोट वाला था कि हाँ भाई आर्म कंट्रोलर is an entity, okay. So there is another sensor is the entity, and those arrows showing the relationship between these entities. So architecture हम इस तरह बनाते हैं. फिर हमारे पास याद होगा कि डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स में भी भाई ठीक है, I mean diamond shape है तो what it is going to represent, okay. So owl shape hai, to every design systems has its own understanding. We have studied in previous lecture that UML is the only platform in which we develop all such type of block diagrams, and the code itself is going to be generated through those block diagrams. So definitely it's the UML, and we know the fact is that UML itself is not complete, okay. So definitely, this is giving us the what most of the designs, more than 90% is covered by, our UML is utilized. Anyways, but these have been criticized because they lack semantics, do not show the types of relationship between the entities, not the visible properties of entities in the architecture. So it's talking about the UML is what I said, okay, it's not complete. So definitely it lacks the semantic. Semantic is a knowledge, what we call it, the knowledge about the knowledge, or what we call it, the metadata, if we talk about the codes, okay, is a language of understanding that particular sign. So हम अगर मोहनजोदारो की साइंस हैं तो हमें नहीं पता, अगर इसकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग हमें मिल जाए तो what we call it the semantics. That depends on the use of architecture models. The requirements for model semantics depend on how the models are used. So definitely, again, we have the architectural models. There are different models. Is we have the the development models completely. Okay. So the box and line diagrams, boxes, so very abstract. They do not show the nature of component relationship, the external visible properties of the subsystems. However, they're useful for communication with the stakeholders and for project planning. So the use of architecturals is a way of facilitating the discussion about the system design, is a way of documenting an architecture that has been designed. So definitely, अब इसके सवाल है कि architectural models के usage, फायदे, I mean, these are enormous. These are the आर्किटेक्चरल मॉडल्स ही तो है, आर्किटेक्चरल डिजाइन तो है जो कंप्लीट सिस्टम को बना रही है, यानी कि हेल्प आउट की कर रही है, कि इजी हो जाता है. हम देखते हैं ना, ड्राइंग बनाते हैं हम किसी को भी समझाने के लिए, हम कितना भी टेक्स्ट हो मगर हम पिक्टोरियल फॉर्मेट में आसानी से समझा जाते हैं. एंड डेफिनेटली देयर आर अदर advantages as well. Anyways, architectural design decisions, कौन सी चीजें आपको जहन में रखनी है जब आप आर्किटेक्चरल डिजाइन बना रहे हैं, कौन से सवालात करने हैं अपने आप से या उनके जवाब ढूंढने हैं. Let's check the decisions. Okay, so you have the system be distributed across the hardware cores or processors. What architectural patterns or styles might be used? What strategy will be used to control the operation of components in the system? How should the architecture of the system be documented? What architectural organization is based for delivering the non-functional requirements of the system? So definitely we have the functional requirements and non-functional requirements. And so that non-functional requirements even should not be compromised, okay, for the good software. And definitely अगर non-functional requirements ही compromise हों तो क्या, वो तो फिर कोई फायदा नहीं है ना. For example, मैं आपको कहूँ being the teacher कि भाई आप एक सॉफ्टवेयर बनाएं, आप एक सॉफ्टवेयर बनाएं. For example, assuming कि आप आगे चल के ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम बना रहे हैं, तो आपने बना लिया. फॉर एग्जाम्पल अज्यूमिंग कि भाई कंप्लीट ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम बना लिया. अब सवाल ये है कि नॉन फंक्शनल रिक्वायरमेंट्स इसमें चेक करनी है. ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम बूट होने में कितना टाइम ले रहा है. अब यहाँ पे दो ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम है. एक ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम कुछ सेकंड्स में या माइक्रो सेकंड्स में या मिनट में बूट हो रहा है. आपने ऑन किया और आपके पास स्क्रीन स्टार्ट मेन्यू की आ गई, दैट्स फाइन. दूसरी तरफ आपके पास सॉफ्टवेयर है जो कि 5-6 घंटे ले रहा है बूट होने में. So now definitely the functional requirements में तो ठीक है भाई, हमें ये ऐसा सिस्टम हो जो इस तरीके से काम करे. भाई कितने टाइम में काम करे, what is the efficiency of that system? What is the execution time of that particular program? What is the security of that particular program or the data or the system? So all these things are very important. And definitely these need to be balanced, what we call it, the trade-off between functional and non-functional requirements. How will the structural components in the system be decomposed into the subsystems? This need to be decided, or these need to be raised as a question. What will be the fundamental approach used to structure the system? And definitely what will be the fundamental, that particular model to structure the system? Is there a generic application architecture that can act as a template for the system that is being designed? शायद ऐसी कोई डिजाइन है या ऐसा कोई सिस्टम बना हुआ है, हमें डिजाइन पड़ी हुई है एज अ टेम्पलेट, हम इसको यूज करें, कर सकते हैं या नहीं, ये सवाल उठाना है। ठीक है, चेक करना है कि शायद ऐसी चीज हमारे पास पड़ी हुई हम रीयूज कर सकें। So guys, these are the decisions. So architecture reuse, the systems in the same domain after, often similar architectures that reflect the domain concepts. The application product lines are built around a core architecture with variants that satisfy the particular customer requirements. The architecture of a system may be designed around the one of more architectural patterns or styles. These capture the essence of an architecture can be initiated in different ways. Anyways, there is nothing to be discussed. So reuse के बारे में है, ये भी वही चीजें हैं कि architecture and system characteristics में, जैसा कि मैंने बताया कि performance, security, safety, availability, maintainability, all these are again the factors, what we call it, especially the non-functional properties or requirements, structural views, and how many views we can see, what we call it, that is called the structural views. What views or representatives are useful when designing and documenting a system's architecture? What notations should be used for the describing the architectural models? Each architectural model only shows one view or perspective of the system. It might show how a system is decomposed into modules, how the runtime processes interact or the different ways in which design components are distributed across a network. For both design documentation, you really need to present the multiple views of the software architecture. And definitely there are different views. जैसा कि कस्टमर का व्यू अपना है और अपना हमारे पास डेवलपर का अपना है, व्हाट वी कॉल इट। अगर हम देखा जाए कि आर्किटेक्चरल व्यूज में फिजिकल व्यू है हमारे पास, लॉजिकल व्यू है, डेवलपमेंट व्यू इज देयर, प्रोसेस व्यू इज देयर, okay, that can be viewed in these all four views. And there is another model, view model, what we this is sometimes called the 4+1 view model of this architecture, system architecture. A logical view which shows the key abstractions of the system is objects or object classes. A process view, we know that what is itself a process. So process view which shows how at runtime the system is composed of interacting the processes. A development view which shows how the software is decomposed for the developments. Those chunks are what we call it the different components, or what we call it the functions. Okay. A development view, then the physical view which shows the system hardware and how software components are distributed across the processors in the system. So definitely small data input and how that is processed from operating system to the hardware, and definitely especially the processor, are related using use cases or scenarios. Okay. So the fifth one in this is what we call it the 4+1 view model, is the using the use cases or the scenarios. Okay. Representing the architectural views. Some people argue that the unified modeling language UML is an appropriate notation for describing the documenting system architectures. Also, here is the thing, what I in previous class told that UML is not complete. UML itself is in an infancy. It need to be completed. I mean, is author the Somerville's also disagree. So I disagree with this, as I do not think that the UML includes the abstractions appropriate for high-level system descriptions. Architectural description language ADLs have been developed but are not widely used. So the architectural patterns are there. Architectural patterns are means of representing the sharing, the reusing the knowledge. An architectural pattern is a stylized description of a good design practice which has been tried and tested in different environments. Patterns should include information about when they are and when they are not useful. The patterns may be represented using tabular and graphical descriptions. So this is the model view controller pattern. This is very interesting, guys. Model view controller pattern. Okay. Well, let's look for the confirmation, guys. Everybody is active, listening to me and trying to understand me. Or it's Suhail. Vajiva. The host is missing. Abdul Rahman.
Yes, sir.
Eman.
Yes, sir.
Alize. Ariba Kashif.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Dilip Kumar. Fasih Abbas. Hatsa.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I am there, sir.
Peel.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Javeri, Miss Fiza Fatma, Mughal Ali Raza, Munaima,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oskan,
Yes, sir.
Rahman,
Yes, sir.
Shabakar, Sayyid
Yes,
Muhammad
sir.
Ali,
Sashra.
Sir Shankar is here.
Yashvi.
Yes, sir.
Good, guys. So,
Sir, Soeraman is there, sir.
सर मेरा नाम
is here.
सर
बहुत
आपने
जल्दी
मेरा नाम भी ले लिया.
okay, anyways, guys. So everybody is active now. So model view controller, MVC pattern. So the MVC is okay. Let's explain from this picture. Okay, this model view controller. If we take an example of if we take an example of what web server, is I gave the previous example, web server, and the client. For example, anybody who want to access the Sukkur IBA University website, assuming I'm typing www. What it is, iba-sucker.edu.pk. Okay. Now, this is the domain of that particular website, web server. Now, in next semester, probably you're going to have the subject that is computer networks. But this is again a small level. I mean, maybe you have studied in ICT first semester. So what it is, we have HTTP requests, hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP request. So what is the HTTP request? HTTP request is going to be sent from a particular machine having the IP address and 192.168.1.0, assuming. So this machine is going to send the HTTP request to the web server. In this case, okay, Sukkur IBA University web server, what it is, okay, its domain is www. iba-suk.edu.pk. So that is going to send the response, what we call is the HTTP response. Being the software engineers, the developers, now there should be the question, which type of data and response is coming from the web server? Can anybody tell me? What will be the response from web server in reply of HTTP request? What we
Sir,
call
it
it, the,
HTML pages.
it is going to send the images.
सर हम HTML पेज रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे, क्लिक करेंगे तो HTML पेज आएगा रिक्वेस्ट रेस्पॉन्स में सर. अगर हम किसी इमेज को क्लिक करेंगे तो इमेज आएगा सर.
No, it is in response. Definitely not images. Only the HTML code is going to be sent to your machine in HTTP response, and that code is executed by the web browser. What we call it, the Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer. So all these web browser are going to translate that HTML code, and the result of that, I mean, execution of that code, result of that execution is in front of us. Facebook.com टाइप किया, इंटर किया हमने वेब ब्राउजर में, सो आपने HTTP रिक्वेस्ट जनरेट की, रेस्पॉन्स में HTTP रेस्पॉन्स में फेसबुक का सर्वर आपको HTML कोड भेजेगा जो कि आपके वेब ब्राउजर में आके एग्जीक्यूट होगा. उसका रिजल्ट जो आपके सामने आ रहा है, दैट इज द sign in page or the sign up page of the Facebook. ये जो है होम पेज कहलाता है. होम पेज हम खुद सेट कर सकते हैं. समटाइम्स वेबसाइट अगर आपके पास ई कॉमर्स की है तो उसका जो है होम पेज कॉन्टैक्ट डिटेल्स और इससे रिलेटेड इंफॉर्मेशन का होता है. एनीवेज होम पेज खुद सेट करते हैं. सो अब हम इस व्यू को देखते हुए मॉडल व्यू कंट्रोलर की तरफ आते हैं कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ द मॉडल व्यू कंट्रोलर क्या है. सो आप देखें कि हमारे पास व्यू है, ठीक है, व्यू है, मॉडल करते हैं VC मॉडल व्यू कंट्रोलर. सो मॉडल में क्या है? मॉडल encapsulates the application state, notifies view of state changes. So model is going to combine the states. So its states are what? State याद होगा कि we have we have the two states, 0 or 1 in binary. Okay.
सर डेटा को कह रहे हैं ना स्टेट यहाँ पे.
Encapsulates that. 1 minute, let me finish, then I'm going to tell you. Then notifies view of the state changes. Now definitely if there is any change, okay, so that is going to be the notified. अब आप states फंक्शन को कह सकते हैं एग्जैक्टली. अगर उस फंक्शन से रिलेटेड डेटा को, सोहेल था, पता नहीं कौन किसका क्वेश्चन था, ठीक है. हम आते हैं अब व्यू की तरफ. सो व्हाट व्यू इज गोइंग टू टेल? व्यू रेंडर्स द मॉडल, व्यू रिक्वेस्ट मॉडल अपडेट्स, sends user events to controller, and then we have the controller. Controller maps user actions to model updates, select the view. So now model view थोड़ा सा और हम इस तरफ आते हैं यहाँ पे वेब ब्राउजर वाले एग्जांपल पे वेब एप्लीकेशन आर्किटेक्चर यूजिंग एमवीसी। ओके, सो अब आप देखें वेब ब्राउजर का एग्जांपल दिया मैंने कि भाई वी फॉर एग्जांपल वी ओपन द वेब ब्राउजर, सो नाउ HTTP रिक्वेस्ट प्रोसेसिंग, ओके, application specific logic, data validation, all these must be in controller. Then we have the view dynamic page or the static pages. Okay, forms management is in the view and model क्या है, वहां पे तो डेफिनेटली हमारे पास बिजनेस लॉजिक ही होती है. So the business logic or the database, so that is in the model. HTTP request की प्रोसेसिंग और ये सब कुछ, जाहिर सी बात है कितनी रिक्वेस्ट आ रही है कंट्रोलर के पास ही होगा ना भाई, कंट्रोलर ही मैनेज कर लेगा ना, एज ए गार्ड रोल प्ले कर रहा है. हाँ भाई, हमारी जो कैपेसिटी है 1000 HTTP रिक्वेस्ट हैंडल करने की है, सो होल्ड डाउन, ऑलरेडी 1000 है. सक्कर आईबीए का जो सक्कर आईबीए की वेबसाइट क्यों डाउन हो जाती है कि व्हेन वी कॉल इट के हम भाई 5 बजे की अपलोड कर लेंगे. अब जाहिर सी बात है कि हमारा जो वेब सर्वर है उसके पास उस 5 बजे में पूरी दुनिया से ऑलमोस्ट, मे बी दुनिया इसीलिए कह रहा हूं कि मे बी किसी का जो है ना पेरेंट और जो भी रिलेटिव है वो शायद फॉरेन में बैठा हो, वो भी रिजल्ट चेक करना चाहता हो, वो खुद कैंडिडेट भी चेक करना चाहता है, उसके पेरेंट्स भी चेक करना चाहते हैं. सो वी आर सेइंग कि इन एवरेज जो है ना हमारे पास 5000 कैंडिडेट्स थे, तो इन एवरेज 2 से 3 बंदे एक बंदे के, या एक बंदा बार बार चेक कर रहा होता है. तो डेफिनेटली ये HTTP रिक्वेस्ट तो वेब सर्वर के पास आ रही है ना, कि वेब सर्वर में इतनी कैपेबिलिटी हो कि ये साइमल्टेनियसली सबको HTTP रेस्पॉन्सेस भेजता जाए. जब नहीं भेज पाता तो हम इसको कहते हैं कि डिनायल ऑफ सर्विस, व्हाट वी कॉल इट द DOS अटैक्स. ये होता था, अभी भी होता है कि किसी की भी वेब सर्वर को आप डाउन कर सकते हैं. प्रोग्राम्ड भी थे, अब उसका सॉल्यूशन तो निकाल लिया है हम रिसर्चर्स ने. लाइक वी हैव कि भाई आप पहले तो कहते थे कि ठीक है सुबह 9 बजे जो है ना 1 लाख HTTP रिक्वेस्ट फ्ला डोमेन पे चली जाएं. लाइक इलेक्शन कमीशन में देखा था कि इलेक्शंस की एक दफा बताया था कि इलेक्शन कमीशन का कोई सिस्टम डाउन हो गया है. दैट इज द थिंग. मगर इसके सॉल्यूशंस हैं. आप बार बार हम कहते हैं कि फॉर एग्जांपल HTTP रिक्वेस्ट किसी भी सिस्टम से पिछले 5 मिनट में 10 से ज्यादा आई हुई हैं, तो उससे आप वेरिफिकेशन मांग लें. आई एम नॉट रोबोट, व्हाट वी कॉल इट द कैप्चा. ठीक है, उसकी ठीक है भाई, हाँ बताओ कि उस कैप्चा में फिर हम डिफरेंट मॉडल्स इस्तेमाल करते हैं. स्पीच रिकॉग्निशन भी है, इमेजेस भी हैं, अब लेटर्स हैं कि रिकॉग्नाइज करें. एनीवेज, so this is the model view controller, and now we have the layered architecture. So layered, I have already told guys, वो जो layered, for example हार्डवेयर है हमारे पास, फिर ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम है उसके ऊपर, ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम उसको चला रहा है, ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम के ऊपर हमारे पास एप्लीकेशंस हैं, एप्लीकेशन सॉफ्टवेयर्स हैं. सो द एप्लीकेशन सॉफ्टवेयर्स में हमारे पास अभी देखें फॉर एग्जांपल नेक्स्ट स्लाइड पे हमारे पास 20th स्लाइड नंबर. So system support, operating system databases, then we have the core business logic, application functionality, system utilities, the user interface, management, authentication and authorization. User interface. अब layered में जैसे books shelf में पड़ी हुई होती हैं, तो डेफिनेटली उसके जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं वो भी ऐसे ही होनी चाहिए कि फॉर एग्जांपल एक लेयर को आप इफेक्ट होती है तो डेफिनेटली उसकी जो एडजॉइनिंग लेयर्स होती हैं वो भी इफेक्ट होंगी. हम एक बुक निकाल लें तो डेफिनेटली दूसरी जो है ना वो आपस में जो आने वाली जो ऊपर नीचे वाली जो लेयर्स हैं वो इफेक्ट होंगी. डेफिनेटली इसको हम लेयर कहते हैं. और इससे पहले हमने जो है ना क्लाइंट सर्वर भी कवर कर लिया था. ओके, उसके बाद हमारा है रेपोजिटरी आर्किटेक्चर. So subsystems to mass exchange data may be done in two ways. Shared data is held in central database or repository, may be accessed by all subsystems. Each subsystem maintains its own database and passes the data explicitly to other subsystem. So repository, sometimes वो जो client server वाला हमने कहा था कि वो भी repository का किस्म है, जो एक सेंट्रल जो सिस्टम है उसको एक्सेस करते हैं रेपोजिटरी में. अब रेपोजिटरी प्योरली ये डेटाबेस से रिलेटेड थोड़ा सा फर्क है कि हम फॉर एग्जांपल क्लाउड स्टोरेज, ड्रॉपबॉक्स, ड्राइव वन ड्राइव, व्हाटएवर द बेतहाशा क्लाउड स्टोरेजेस अब हैं, तो भाई एक ही जगह है, एक ही आई मीन स्टोरेज सर्वर है, उसमें डिफरेंट के पोर्शंस हैं, डिफरेंस की डेटा है, फॉर एग्जांपल क्लाइंट 1, क्लाइंट 2, क्लाइंट 3 एंड क्लाइंट n तक. When large amount of data are to be shared, this repository model of sharing is most commonly used. As this is an efficient data sharing mechanism, that a large amount of data are to be shared in repository. And definitely वही है ना कि सेंट्रल डेटाबेस है तो डेफिनेटली जो अमाउंट है, हम कहते हैं कि फॉर एग्जांपल इन फेसबुक सर्वर्स, फेसबुक का जहां पे स्टोरेज सर्वर है और उसके कितने क्लाइंट्स हैं, कितनी शेयर्स आ रही हैं, कितनी डेटा शेयर हो रही है, बिलियंस ऑफ टेराबाइट्स में रोजाने के हिसाब से जो है ना वो डेटा शेयर हो रही है. ओके, सो डेफिनेटली यही कि when large amount of data are to be shared, the repository model is suitable. Okay, most commonly used. ये repository का example है. Okay, repository में वही है कि central data travels in two directions, 32 slide number, bidirectional. Then we have the client server architecture. Distributed system model, which shows how data and processing is distributed across a range of components. Set of standalone servers which provide specific services such as printing, data management. A client server में, as I have told, web server है हमारे पास, फिर clients हैं. अगर local network की example लेते हैं, हम यहाँ पे 4-5 offices हैं. We are using the common printer. So that is again the client server way. So common printer जो है ना, common network resources use हो, the network which allows clients to access the servers. So same as I give the servers example. So this is and I mean through internet, it is definitely the client and server is through the internet. As I told, the HTTP request and web browser and all this, we have already explained this. Then we have the pipe and filter architecture. So the pipe and filter architecture is something we have the conditions used simply. So the filter is what? कि हमारे पास हम कहते हैं कि फॉर एग्जांपल भाई किस बंदे ने असाइनमेंट जमा करवाई है या किसी ने नहीं. The condition is that. Okay, for example, somebody submitted, okay, should go there, is yes, otherwise no. Display the list of defaulters, or what we call it, those who missed the deadline. Okay, so here pipe and filter we use the condition. Application architectures. The applications architectures, the application system are designed to meet an organizational need. A business have much in common. Their application systems also tend to have common architecture that reflects the application requirements. A generic application architecture is an architecture for a software system that may be configured and adapted to create a system that meets the specific requirement. Same goes. So that is what this is what we explained. I explained at the start of this lecture कि भाई requirements हैं हमारे पास, तो definitely हम requirements के best जो है एक हम design करते हैं. Okay, model, what we call it the in every model, what we in taking an example of waterfall. So we have the specifications, then design, okay, design and implementation. Use of application architecture is a starting point for architectural design, is a design checklist, is a way of organizing the work of the development team, as a means of assessing the components of for you reuse. हम कौन सा कंपोनेंट रीयूज कर सकते हैं, कौन सा हमारे पास बना हुआ है तो हम उसको रीइन्वेंट क्यों करें मील को, तो डेफिनेटली रीयूज कर लेते हैं. As the vocabulary for talking about the application types, what we call it the metadata. The examples of applications types: data processing applications, transaction processing applications, event processing applications, language processing systems. All these these are the, you might in short, you might have studied in ICT. So we have the two application types हैं हमारे पास. E-commerce systems हैं, reservation systems हैं, compilers हैं, command interpreters हैं, transaction processing systems हैं. So all these are the types. And structure of transaction processing, this is the simple again software architecture for an ATM. Again, in ATM we have the input and output and what is in processing. So definitely input में हमारे पास get customer account ID है, then ID is going to be validated by the access whatever the data, what we call it, the privacy related data, or what we call the access control data, जिसको हम username and password कहते हैं. ATM की condition में हम password कहते हैं या PIN कहते हैं. And then after that the card is validated, then what we give the input for the that particular service. पैसे निकालने हैं, ठीक है, SWIFT निकालनी है और interbank transactions करनी है या ट्रांसफर करनी है. So definitely उससे related जो भी हमारे पास सर्विस होगी उसको select करना है. That is, this is in the, these all three things are in input. What is going to be in process in the output? भाई username and password दे दिया या PIN दे दिया तो it is going to be processed. Query account, okay, and definitely that is, if suppose it's okay, that is fine, that is correct. So update the output. Yes. Now in output you have details. Either it is the print in print format or it is in the display format, and you got the service and definitely return the card and dispense. These are the simple functions of the ATM. Information systems architecture. This is example of information system architecture. Layered में हमारे पास जो transaction management है, definitely it's the database, information retrieval and modification, user communications, authentication and authorization, user interface. अब interface is at the top, and definitely there is an interface. For example, you switched on the desktop or the laptop, so जैसे ही boot होगा तो definitely आपके पास एक interface है. हाँ, now you have the different accounts, guest account, Ajmal's account, whatever. So now in this you are going to have the authentication or authorization, username and password. Okay, हाँ भाई ये है password तो information, then you have the definitely access to that particular system. या फिर आप cloud का example ले लेते हैं, आपके पास Dropbox, ये इंटरफेस में है, यूजर नेम एंड पासवर्ड दे दिया, अकाउंट आ गया, इंफॉर्मेशन रिट्रीवल एंड मॉडिफिकेशन कर लिया आपने ड्रॉपबॉक्स से, एंड डेफिनेटली द ट्रांजैक्शन मैनेजमेंट विल बी देयर इन डेटाबेस. यानी कि ये सिंपली द लेयर्ड आर्किटेक्चर, या आप हार्डवेयर से रिलेटेड लें, कंप्यूटर से रिलेटेड लें. आई टोल्ड कि पर्टिकुलर हार्डवेयर, सीपीयू में हमारे पास मदरबोर्ड है, प्रोसेसर है, ऑल दीज आर द डिवाइसेस आर द हार्डवेयर्स. So इसके ऊपर इनको चलाने के लिए तो डेफिनेटली हमारे पास ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम है. So the second layer is that ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम के ऊपर हमारे पास कुछ और एप्लीकेशन सॉफ्टवेयर्स हैं. तो लेयर, टॉप लोअर लेयर इज दैट. Okay, in this आर्किटेक्चर ऑफ द मेन केयर सिस्टम हमारे पास ये भी लेयर का एग्जांपल है, आप देख सकते हैं इसको. वेब बेस्ड इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम्स किस किस्म के होते हैं? We know that web based we have the network based. We have the, as I gave the example of web server and the client, okay, HTTP request, HTTP responses, फिर उसकी जो है ना applications, and there is nothing. I mean, we have covered this technically in depth, okay. So server implementation, all these language processing systems, yeah, that related to the examples. So this was all about this chapter. The chapter, guys. So see you after minutes. So it is 10:40. So we will meet at, I think 10 minutes is enough. So we will meet at 10:50. Go for 10 minutes break.
Okay.